Ole Miss still needs that dominant defensive lineman in the portal, and that guy might not be there right now. So we'll explain.
You are Locked On Ole Miss, your daily podcast on the Ole Miss Rebels. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to the Locked On Ole Miss Podcast, your daily podcast on the Ole Miss Rebels, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Hello, I'm Steven Willis, a 10-year veteran member of the national media with Yahoo Sports and a former Ole Miss staff member. On today's show, we're talking about how Ole Miss has been dominating the transfer portal this year. But let's be honest, while the Rebels are thriving at the skill positions, it hasn't been the best year for offensive and defensive line additions because there aren't that many in the portal right now, at least star player wise. With slim pickings and steep prices, the young defensive line may need to step up sooner than expected if Ole Miss doesn't land a game changer like Walter Nolen over the next 5 weeks. We're free and available on all the podcast apps and on YouTube. Thank you for making Locked On Ole Miss your first listen every day. And a special hello to the insiders and everydayers who make this show what it is. Don't forget to find a second listen on the network. Chris Gordy at Locked On SEC and Corey Burton at Locked On Vandy offer great perspectives on college football, the SEC, and yes, even Ole Miss. So check them out. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. We are 12 months removed away from basically going through an incredible Twitter period where Ole Miss fans were eagerly refreshing to see if Ole Miss indeed landed Walter Nolen. And the end result of that was Ole Miss actually landing Walter Nolen. And we all know what Walter Nolen was able to do in the 2024 class at Ole Miss, coming through and just absolutely dominating on his way to a consensus All-American at the end of the year. It makes sense that Ole Miss has found a formula for what works on the defensive line. The problem that Ole Miss is running into this year is the Walter Nolen type player doesn't exactly exist at the price frame that Ole Miss is hoping for. Jaheim Otis was in the portal. Jaheim Otis's asking price was a little bit higher than Ole Miss was willing to go because Jaheim Otis, honestly, if we're just being real about it, was not a Walter Nolen type player. He was not bank-breaking level of player. So Ole Miss looking for that dominant defensive lineman, if they can find it, to try and recreate the defense that they had a year ago. Ole Miss added Princely Amon-Mielen as a strong, basically a pass rush option off of the edge. This year they picked up Prince Will Amon-Mielen. Now he's a different type player and he's going to have to play a different type role because of the emergence of Suntarine Perkins, but I'm sure that Pete Golding's going to be able to handle that. When you look at the linebacker for Ole Miss is seemingly adding linebacker after linebacker with Jayden Williams and Andrew Jones and those players coming in. They're fine there, but defensive line has been a problem in this portal, especially in the interior. And again, I'm not saying anything wrong about Ole Miss, just the talent into the portal in the first 4 weeks of it or 3 weeks of the transfer portal hasn't hit. That superstar player hasn't hit. We saw a tweet thanking Clemson fans from Peter Woods. That would be the type player that Ole Miss fans needs to keep an eye on because Ole Miss is obviously looking for that dominant type defensive line player that they can replace a Walter Nolen with. So if you can't find that, and if you look at the transfer portal as it sits right now, these are the players that are the very top of the transfer portal, led by Lee Hunter, who ended up committing to Texas Tech. David Gustav, he's uncommitted right now. You have Jaheim Otis down there at the 5th spot, a top 250 player in the transfer portal, but no real upper crust players, I think, at this point. Nobody that you're willing to break a bank for. And that is the reason for the lack of a defensive line signing at this point. That explains why Ole Miss has been slower in that area. Now they've added Deshaun Womack, who I think is a perfect person to come in for the Jared Ivey type role. They've added a Prince Will Amon-Mielen, who is perfect for that Suntarine Perkins type role. And then Perkins handling the Princely Amon-Mielen role. They're fine there. But the interior of the defensive line is going to be a very important part of this defense this year. We talked for 8 months leading up to the season about how Walter Nolen and J.J. Pegues and Princely Amami Ellen meant you can't double team everybody. Somebody was going to be single blocked on every single play. And if you win your one-on-ones, all of a sudden the defense has a chance to be really, really good. And surprise, it was. The question will be this year, as we see it, if this transfer portal trend holds on the interior defensive line, you're going to be dealing with Xavier Harris, who played a ton this year. He is a very good player. He is somebody that is going to warrant a double team. Jam Brown, he was a freshman All-American player this year. Those players, William Eccles, those bigger players that are just young, they were recruited out of high school, and you brought in and redshirt some of them. You didn't redshirt Eccles, but that appears that it could be your three. Xavier Harris as your shade nose, your one technique, and then you come over and you have a three technique that is likely going to be a William Eccles or a Jam Brown. And is that unit good enough to accomplish double teams wise what Ole Miss got a year ago? That is kind of the question. With the athletes that Ole Miss is recruiting on the second level of that defense, with Andrew Jones and with Jaden Yates, both tackling machines going beside a TJ Daughtery, you can see the skeleton being constructed. Right now, I just have questions about that interior defensive line. Can they dominate or demand double teams? And if that happens, they're going to free up that second level to be oh so good. They're able to move around a whole lot quicker. You're going to be very difficult to run the ball on. Now, we'll talk in the next segment about the back end of the defense a little bit. But on the front end of the defense, it's going to come down to an interior defensive line that can demand double teams. I mean, you're obviously going to have to pay attention to a Suntaran Perkins because of his athleticism and quickness. Prince Will Ellen, you're going to have to pay attention to him. I think Deshaun Womack going with Cam Franklin, that's an excellent addition on that side of the ball. That interior defensive line, that is the big question mark coming into this regular season. Xavier Harris, Jam Brown, William Eccles, those guys in the middle of the defense, it is their time to shine because it looks like with the transfer portal not having that big name right now, they are going to get their opportunity. We always like to talk a little bit, especially in like the wide receiver room, these really highly thought of wide receivers that exist in that room that constantly kind of get recruited over in the transfer portal. And so they don't have a chance to shine, to develop, whatever you want to look at. This is going to be an opposite situation to where some homegrown high school recruits in Xavier Harris, Jam Brown, and William Eccles has a chance to really take Ole Miss football to the next level by what they do on the defensive line. I think they can do it. They have the ability to do it, but I would like to see it. And I would certainly feel a lot better, as would other Ole Miss fans, if there was another Walter Nolen running around on the defensive line. But the point is that even though the transfer portal on the interior defensive line is not what we expect it to be, the prices are way too high for the talent that is there right now. Ole Miss is in a position because of Pete Golding last year and what they have recruited on the defensive line over the last couple of years to have a pretty good unit. When you look at the Jeffrey Rushes and Cam Beavers and Cam Franklins to go along with the William Eccles and Jam Browns and Xavier Harris, you've got a nice homegrown defensive line unit, which as much grief as everybody gives Lane Kiffin, it'd be really interesting if they are successful. I am going to be rooting like heck for them because that is a completely homegrown unit. And if Ole Miss can be really good on the defensive line, again, with the linebackers that they have, this defense has a chance to be really, really good this season. Anyway, so Big news on Christmas Day. Fluff Bothwell is going to announce his choice: Ole Miss, Mississippi State, Arizona, or Cincinnati. Plus, the Rebels face key decisions on their offensive skill players and whether Diego Pounds or Jayden Williams can secure the right tackle spots to protect lefty quarterback Austin Simmons' blindside. Stay tuned for all the updates. The NFL playoffs are almost here, and it's not too late to get in on the regular season action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now new customers can finish a season strong with $250 in bonus bets if that first $5 bet wins. FanDuel has so many ways for you to pick up a W. I love betting on which players will score a touchdown and how many points each team will score. It's thrilling. How about checking out the college football playoff where you can get Texas favored by 13.5 points over Arizona State in their game? Just visit FanDuel.com today to join. That's FanDuel.com for your chance at $250 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. So let's change gears a little bit. The news that happened since our last recording and put out is that Fluff Bothwell is going to announce his commitment on Christmas Day. He is the player. We've been joking, who is the player that was going to commit on Christmas? It's going to be Fluff Bothwell. He is the guy that's going to do that. I like Bothwell a lot. When you look at the running back classes that Ole Miss has, Bothwell last year, 111 carries, 832 yards, 13 touchdowns, nearly 8-yard a carry average. A really good player at 5'10", 220 pounds roughly, and he is a twitchy, explosive back. We talked about that all yesterday. His commitment options are Mississippi State, Cincinnati, and Arizona. Now, the question that Fluff Bothwell is going to have to get answered probably on his visit is how much of a factor is Kewan Lacy, because Ole Miss recruited Kewan Lacy, and I guarantee you Lacy is being used against Bothwell by Cincinnati, Arizona, and a Mississippi State as we speak. Kewan Lacy had 23 carries, 101 yards for the Missouri Tigers this year. He is out of Lancaster, Texas. His film running the ball was just special. Good player. I like Kewan Lacy a whole lot, but Bothwell is that guy that Ole Miss needs. And Bothwell is that guy that would be, honestly, he would make Justice Haynes dispensable to the point where that wouldn't hurt. I love this player as a player, and we'll see exactly how that goes. Now, the other thing is Ole Miss likely needs a right tackle. We talked about trench play and all of that. Right tackles demand a ton of money, so it might be a little bit difficult to do. So what I think is going on is Jayden Williams and Diego Pounds are seeing if they can play right side during bowl practices, the stuff that we can't see, to make sure, because they were never going to let Micah Pettis guard Austin Simmons blindside. That wasn't going to happen. That was a recipe for 4 holding penalties a game. And it just is what it is. And Diego Pounds and Jayden Williams, they're both very good guys, but it's not a slam dunk that a person that plays on the left can play on the right. The footwork, the coordination, you just don't know how it's going to go. Now, these are very elite athletes, and an offensive lineman case, an elite jumbo type athlete, but you have to figure out what you have. And that's one of the reasons that I think that in this game against Duke, it would be good to get Austin Simmons into the game and move over and have Jayden Williams or Diego Pounds play in that right tackle, so you can see, because Duke is a tackle for loss team. They just are. They are a team that is known for getting you in bad positions and tackling you for sacks and tackles for loss. They are number 2 in the country behind Ole Miss. So you would know they're going to get pressure. That's what they're going to do. You would know exactly what you have in Diego Pounds or Jayden Williams before this transfer portal window even closes. And you will know if you need to go out and break the bank on an offensive tackle in this winter transfer portal window. I think it would answer a lot of questions. Now, in a perfect storm, in a perfect story, Diego Pounds or Jayden Williams just slides over to that right side and locks it down. And you have a left tackle and a right tackle that are essentially blindside worthy. You can kind of build up the interior of that offensive line, whether it be Patrick Kutas or somebody else in the middle of that line. If Julius Buelow gets an additional year of eligibility, and I think Bryson Sanders is likely going to be the center into next season. But that is potentially what the offensive line could look like in a perfect storm. In that perfect world, if you line up there, you can see that happen. But if you get in that Duke game and Jayden Williams or Diego Pound, they have trouble on that right-hand side, you know that you need to go out and spend some money, essentially, to bring in that tackle, as overpriced as he might be, to bring him in. The rumor numbers that are going around for the transfer portal right now is absolutely ridiculous. And a lot of that has to do with like LSU and Auburn being desperate programs. In fact, that they need to win. So they're going to throw around money, and they're not going to lose a bidding war this offseason in hopes that they can save their coach and get everything kind of right. This is kind of a last chance before you have to throw everything out and start over again. And the same goes for Brian Kelly. And then you have the juggernauts in the conference as well. Like Florida is doing a heck of a job at wide receiver right now because of DJ Lagway and because of the momentum they built at the end of the season. South Carolina is really rolling. They just got a commitment from Sean Murphy, the linebacker that visited Ole Miss. Again, Ole Miss took Andrew Jones. That kind of makes sense of what was going on. Jones and Yates, that kind of puts Ole Miss linebacking exactly where it needs to be. But whenever you look at what's going on the offensive line, that all kind of makes sense. Now, some other questions that are going on. We talked about running back. We talked about the offensive line. What about the cornerback position on that side? Jalen Braxton has been recruited from Arkansas, and Ole Miss has not added another cornerback in this class right now. That tells me that they really respect what Jalen Braxton can do as a cornerback. And he has a chance to grow into that Trey Amos type lockdown guy that you can just put on the field and not worry about. I think that's what they think of him. Now, we talked about the kid from Michigan State. He was recruited for a little while. You saw on the boards and everything. Did Ole Miss vet him? Did he not get vetted? Did all of that, all the question marks around that was interesting. He ended up committing to Miami because Ole Miss was just a little bit, I guess, either below the offer, or Ole Miss was kind of slow playing, kind of wanting to see what was up. Was he an Isaiah Hamilton type player? Was he a Chris Graves type player? And that's what's going on with that. And he ended up committing to Miami. So Jalen Braxton's kind of the dude. Now, is he the end-all, be-all at the cornerback position for this Ole Miss Rebel defense? Ole Miss is recruiting safeties. They've added Sage Ryan. They're probably going to add, if everything shows over the next couple of weeks, they'll probably add 2 or 3 other players as well. But as Ole Miss looks to efficiently build their team, we had Walker Jones on the show last year, and he said the whole goal of the collective is to make $1 spend like 3. They have to be efficient. They were not overly efficient a year ago. Just look at the running back room that they had, to where you're playing a 5th string wide receiver at running back whenever you brought in a Rashad Amos, whenever you brought in a Dominic Thomas, whenever you repaid Ulysses Bentley the 4. And that's interesting because I think they're kind of doubling down on efficiency right now. And plus, you can look at this transfer portal room and everybody they brought in. They all seem to have multiple years of eligibility, which means they're trying to win in 2025. I'm not saying they're not. They're trying to make the playoff in 2025. But what I am saying is 2026 has a chance to be what 2024 was predicted to be, as far as them building up with multiple years of eligibility. So we'll see exactly how that works for the Rebels as well. Coming up in our final segment, we're diving into some odds and ends on the 2025 Ole Miss football team, from quarterback to kicker. plus a look at potential portal class additions the Rebels could be targeting maybe, so do not miss it. You know, there's nothing like the energy of being at a live game, the roar of the crowd, the sound of the sneakers squeaking on the court, and even spotting a few celebrities in the stands. I remember going to an NBA game a few years back, and the electricity in the arena was unforgettable. You can't replicate that on the couch. This year, I'm looking forward to catching more games live, and the Game Time app makes it easier than ever with their new Game Time Picks feature. Whether it's basketball, concerts, or theater, Game Time helps you find the best deals on great seats without the hassle of endless scrolling. I just hopped on the app to check out tickets for an upcoming game, and Game Time Picks made it a breeze to find a super deal with amazing seats. Plus, the app showed me a panoramic seat view so I could pick the perfect spot. No guesswork, no surprises. And it isn't just sports. Game Time is also incredible for concerts and comedy shows. I'm planning on to grab tickets to a concert next month, and with all in prices, I see exactly what I will pay up front. No hidden fees. What I love most about Game Time is their lowest price guarantee. If you find a better deal, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. And with event cancellation protection, your tickets are covered if plans change. It is the most flexible ticketing app I have ever used. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time Picks. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege, all one word, for $20 off your first purchase. Again, that's code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE, all one word, for $20 off that first purchase. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. So the quarterback position is interesting for Ole Miss right now. And it really says everything about Austin Simmons. If you remember how Lane Kiffin handled the Jackson Dart situation in 2022 and in 2023, if we're going to be honest about it. But Lane Kiffin is looking for a quarterback right now. He is definitely not trying to find another Spencer Sanders. That is insanely obvious. They brought Bo Prulila, the guy that just committed to Missouri, in for an official visit. He ended up committing to Missouri because Lane Kiffin is notoriously honest on these visits. That's one of the reasons Ole Miss does so well in the transfer portal, is how honest Lane Kiffin is. And Lane Kiffin flat out told them, has like, hey, you're going to be competing with this guy, and this guy's really freaking good. So it's going to take a special type person to come in and commit to Ole Miss, because there's a lot of situations around the country that is looking for a one-year rental at quarterback that is just trying to make it through to the next round. Anthony Calandria visited Ole Miss, heard the spiel, ended up going to UNLV, where he is likely the starting quarterback. Bo Prulila, I think that's his name, visited Ole Miss, saw that it wasn't for him. Once he got this feel, ended up committing to Missouri. I think Austin Simmons is going to be a really good player for Ole Miss. And the quarterback position, you need another quarterback. It's all a matter of who you bring in. Remember, this is the important thing. Everybody that was rooting for a Spencer Sanders to happen, everybody that was rooting for that type of situation to happen at Ole Miss again, look at what happened at Mississippi State, where just overly flirting with Jackson Arnold cost you Michael Van Buren, who has a chance to be like a freshman Matt Corral. And he's down at LSU now playing for your other rival, if you're an Ole Miss fan. But Mississippi State's looking at him playing somewhere that he's going to have to see a lot. And all of that for just the thought that you were in bed with Jackson Arnold. Mississippi State ended up signing somebody that was a backup quarterback at Florida State. And we saw Florida State's quarterback play this year, and it was like, that's not the dude. So we'll see exactly how that happens and everything that goes down in the quarterback position for Ole Miss this season. Now, kicker-wise, everybody wants some kicker news. Lucas Carnero, a sophomore this year at Western Kentucky, should have about 2 years of eligibility, 94% on field goals, had a long of 54 yards. He was 18 and 19 on the year. His only miss actually happened from 30 to 39 yards, but he was perfect at 6 for 6 over 50, 3 for 3 over 40, 5 of 6 over 30, 20 of 4 of 4 of 20 over 20, and he did not have a 19-yard kick. But this is a good player. His freshman year, he was 9 of 12. Most of those kicks inside 30 yards. He was 4 or 5 outside of 40 yards. So we'll see exactly what that matters. Now, he is supposed to visit, I think, after Christmas. He is a post-Christmas visit target. And he got restoried or something like that on Lane Kiffin's Instagram story. That's how I found out about this name, and it just kind of popped up. He was the Conference USA Special Teams Player of the Year and was just a weapon on field goals. Now, people also have been talked about, and they said that kickoff-wise, you have a basic kickoff specialist that is ready to take over to replace what Caden Davis did, because Caden Davis just being an automatic touchback, that cannot be overstated. Apparently, Ole Miss has another one of those on their roster as well. He might not be a field goal kicker, but he might be an excellent kickoff specialist. And I have not heard anything about punter to this point. So we'll see how it goes. Anyway, Christmas Eve show is in the books. I hope everybody has a Merry Christmas. We will see you tomorrow morning with a special announcement on our Christmas show as well. So tune in for that, and we'll see exactly how it goes. I do want to thank everybody for tuning in and making your Locked On Ole Miss podcast your go-to source for Ole Miss sports. We pride ourselves on offering the most comprehensive perspectives, which is why we are the number one Ole Miss podcast out there. Your support means the world to us, and thank you so much for making us your Ole Miss morning show. Thank you for making Locked On Ole Miss your first listen today. For your second listen, check out Locked On SEC podcast. Host Chris Gordy holds no punches, covering the best conference in all of college football. Find Locked On SEC on YouTube or wherever you listen to those podcasts. Merry Christmas, everybody. Hotty toddy.